Welcome to the Timelapse of the brush. Today we're carrying on working our way through the colours for the Deathguard Defiler. We've started off with Zandri dust, given that a layer over the Agrax earth shade. Going to come in now with some Morghast, just the next colour up, and repeat the process, just working slightly lighter and working our way up. So just trying to work out where you can actually see me on camera. So that's the very limit, so we need to be in front of that, right. So I'm going to start off with the underside and just come across the plates, working so that I get the high points towards the centre. I'm not being too precious about this. I've got a slightly damp brush and this is the mid-tone, so again it's a case of working slowly, trying to build these colours up. Might just have to try and wipe the edge of this one. Pretty much anything we're doing at the moment we can correct at a later date anyway. So I just want to try and grab the edges, raise those up, make them a little bit more obvious. And this is a build-up process, so even if it looks bad at the moment, hopefully it will look better towards the end. This is one of those things. Experience has taught me that yes, it does tend to look pretty bad to start with, but it does tend to improve. So it's having the perseverance to plough through and keep going. Sometimes it's just a case of lightening these panels up. We're not quite light enough yet. We've got to go to Wraithbone as the final colour, but hopefully it will look like a decent bone effect, the same colour that I've used on the other Deathguard models that you've seen on the channel. Just showing you how I've achieved that. And as you can tell, the brush is still very wet. It's not a dry brush, not as such. I just want to try and catch all the raised areas and start working this up. That's the lower body. And what I'm trying to do is just work in the same direction, so I'm not scrolling around, I'm literally flicking in one direction, trying to build the hile up in one specific place. I'll probably have to come back in and do a second coat of this anyway. It starts to get thin like a glaze, and we're doing that because we want to build up a gradual transition rather than getting this sharp, chalky, dry brush effect. And if I do it in several layers, the effect is quite smooth on its transition, and people often think you've used an airbrush when you haven't. Make sure we get these parts. Doesn't matter, we just build up layer after layer. Obviously some of these will need a second coat. So I've been back over the Defiler with Morghast, and now I'm going to do the same thing with some Wraithbone. I'm just going to moisten my dry brush a little bit. get some paint out onto my palette. And yes, I'm using my table as the palette at the moment. So just making sure that I'm getting some paint into the bristles, but just checking how it's looking against my hand. And as before, I want to start with the underside and just literally brush towards the tip of the plates. You might need a little bit more paint to start with. And I have changed the brush that I'm using. Just going with a flatter tip. I want to try and avoid those recesses more now, so I'm not going with the sharper point. I'm trying to go with a rounder point, so try and miss those. Just try to softly build up the layers. I'm trying to keep this towards the top edges, so to speak. Try and keep the bottom side of the plates darker than the top. Starting to get a little chalky, and I need some more paint out anyway, so put a little bit of water out. Just moisten off the brush a little bit. Quite heavy again, so just going to be careful to start with. I'm going to come back where I've already been, just in case it's a little bit too heavy. I can use this as the start of the second pass on some of the parts. Alright, carry on. smaller brush. Get some of these parts. Yeah, so I'm not going to be able to get into the back of that properly. And just working backwards and forwards across the top of that. I'll have to come back and do the tail section with a small brush. It's just not going to be possible with that size brush. Yeah, that's too big. Too big. Try to brush off a little bit. Unfortunately, the chisel tip does have its uses, and it might be an appropriate switch out. The brush is still a bit moist. Alright, let's come back at this part to start with, just check that the brush is alright. We'll start with the underside. Yeah, right, we'll get into the bits we can get. This is where the chisel tip comes in handy. Just allows us to get into those gaps because of the shape of it. You can direct it and get it into tighter spaces than you can with a typical round-headed dry brush. I just find them more useful in some ways. Both have their uses. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I almost want something in between at the moment. yes, it does look very wet, but that way we hopefully avoid the chalkiness that you get with the dry brushing effect. We can build these layers up more slowly to get to where we want. Back in a little bit heavier. Give the armour coat first. We've got the head. Start with the front ones. Just stipple some of this colour in. Try to get lighter at the top. Rather build up multiple layers than one thick dry brush layer. So with the greave, I'm trying to keep the brush stroke going in the same direction. So from the left, I'm pulling from the bottom left to the top right, and from the right, I'm pulling from the bottom right to the top left. Just try and catch the details in the same way, and we'll just build the layers up incrementally. I apologise, I believe I might be coming down with a bit of a cold. So I'm just going to work backwards and forwards, just coming back. in places I don't mind it looking a little streaky. We're going to add some more effects over the top of this anyway, so a bit of streakiness actually is going to help us. So yeah, it's a case of just starting to try and reinforce some of this now, really brighten it up a little bit. It currently looks a little cold, as in the tone of the bone colour has no warmth to it. It feels very cold, which is not the same as the rest of the models in the collection. So we will be adding some warmth back into this at some point. And again, as I've mentioned in other videos, I'm selectively dry brushing to certain points. I'm trying to keep the colour towards the high points and avoiding certain areas so that I have less and less paint going on in some areas, so we build up almost like a brighter point, and do it slowly enough that it doesn't look like dry brushing. You don't get the chalkiness so much, especially if the brush is kept a bit moist. So I'm going to carry on doing that off camera, building up those layers, and I'll come back once I finish doing the Wraithbone.